A millionaire discovered hidden bruises on his cleaner. What he did next was life-changing. Jack Thompson stood in his grand living room, glancing out at the perfectly manicured lawns beyond his sprawling mansion. A prominent millionaire in the suburbs of Chicago, he had built a life of luxury and comfort, reigniting the opulent dreams of a young boy who once knew nothing but struggle. His lavish parties brought an air of extravagance, the laughter and clinking of glasses drowning out the solitude he felt behind those glistening walls. Yet, every Tuesday, the echo of a vacuum cleaner broke through his glamorous bubble. It was Maria, a single mother from a working-class neighborhood, who arrived, bringing her spirit and energy into his home. Today was different, though. As Jack engaged in idle chat with Maria over a cup of coffee, he caught a glimpse of something unusual. Beneath her long sleeves, dark bruises peeked out like haunting shadows against her skin. His heart raced. He wanted to look away, to dismiss it, but he couldn't. "Are you okay?" he inquired, his voice laced with concern. Maria paused, a forced smile struggling to mask the discomfort in her tight shoulders. Her eyes flickered with a painful truth she didn't want to voice. "It's nothing," she began, a tremor in her voice betraying her facade. But Jack pressed, and the lid on her burden began to crack. She spoke of an abusive ex-partner and the relentless fight to provide for her young son. Her resilience struck Jack like a lightning bolt. Her strength was a quiet testament to hope in a world seemingly stacked against her. With each revelation, his understanding of success shifted, cracking the very foundation of his privilege. Determined to help, Jack formulated a plan that ventured beyond mere charity. He envisioned mobilizing his affluent community, local shelters, support groups for victims of domestic violence. But as he shared his intentions, he faced harsh criticism from his peers. "It's misguided." They scoffed, their words cutting through the air like blades. Yet, deep down, Jack felt a fire igniting within him, pushing through the doubt. The realities he unearthed troubled him. People in the affluent bubble he inhabited never spoke of struggles like Maria's. That he pressed on, organizing a community event titled Voices of Resilience, aimed at fostering dialogue around social justice. Anticipation and tension brewed within the community as the event drew near. He could feel the tremors of old wounds surfacing, hidden fears rear their ugly heads. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The gathering arrived, and the air buzzed with collective anxiety. Jack glanced at Maria beside him, the bond between them fortified in their shared commitment to change. As voices rose, stories spilled forth, vulnerabilities laid bare. A wave of catharsis swept through the crowd, showcasing a rawness few had experienced before. But as the emotions crescendoed, Jack caught Maria's gaze flicker with fear, her son clutched protectively against her side. In that electric moment, Jack realized they stood on the edge of transformation, hovering between redemption and uncertainty. Would they find hope in fractured stories, or would the past's demons rear their ugly heads with a vengeance? The room pulsated with uncertainty, as inspiration danced side by side with dread. What would come next in this journey intertwined with struggle and triumph? Jack took a deep breath, scanning the faces in the room. Each person was wrestling with their own pain, their own stories resonating like drumbeats in the charged atmosphere. He felt a surge of responsibility flood through him. He wasn't just sharing a stage with Maria, he was standing in unity with every soul seeking validation, every heart yearning for safety. As the first speaker stepped up to share their experience, Jack's hand brushed against Maria's. It was a small gesture, one filled with a contagious warmth, a silent promise that she wouldn't face this alone. She looked at him, gratitude and fear colliding vividly in her eyes. Jack straightened up, determination hardening his resolve. They would face whatever came next together. The stories unfolded one after another. A woman spoke of escaping a lifetime of despair, her voice trembling like the notes of a shattered piano. A man described how he learned that real strength is admitting vulnerability. Each tale acted like a thread, weaving a tapestry of resilience that swamped the room with fierce emotions. As voices rose and fell, Jack could feel the energy shift. People were listening more intently, nodding, wiping away tears. They were no longer mere observers. They were participants in the bold tapestry of transformation. Midway through, Maria stepped up to the microphone. Jack's heart raced. He could almost see her doubts whispering in the back of her mind, trying to pull her back. But she squared her shoulders and gave him a fleeting glance that seemed to say, "I can do this." She began speaking. Her voice, raw but unwavering, revealed the struggles no one dared to share openly. Her words painted images of fear, but also resilience. The crowd was captivated, on the edge of their seats, each person leaning in as if Maria's narrative was a lifeline they had all needed. She spoke about the bruises, yes, but she also spoke about survival, the bond she shared with her son, and the hope that surged through her like a river against stone. The fear that had flickered in her eyes earlier transformed into a flickering flame of strength. When she stepped down, applause erupted, filling the room with a surge that felt like a release. Jack watched as she sat down, her face flushed, eyes glistening with a mix of vulnerability and pride. It was powerful, what she had done. He felt a swell of admiration for Maria, for her courage, and for the community they were witnessing take shape before their eyes. The event moved into deeper conversations, and Jack felt fantastic hope bubbling within him, as if change was finally within reach. Yet, there was still an undercurrent of fear, a thread pulling at him that whispered not everyone would embrace this new narrative. Just as he thought they might be building a bridge to understanding, a loud voice interrupted from the back of the room, a skeptic who seemed determined to drown out the whispers of hope. "This is just a show. What difference can talking make?" The tension snapped like a taut wire, all eyes darting toward the source of the interruption. Jack's heart raced again, but he knew this moment was crucial. Every voice of doubt had the power to either unravel the threads they worked to weave or become an opportunity to fortify them. Would he and Maria stand against it, or let the shadows of skepticism dim the light they had ignited? A hush fell over the crowd, and Jack felt it, the weight of the present pressing against a future that felt unpredictable. It was a moment of truth. What would he do next? How would they respond together? The stakes had never been higher. Jack stepped forward, his pulse hammering in his ears. He felt the collective breath of the crowd, an almost tangible force. What if it is just talking? He shot back, his voice steady. But what if it's also about connection? About finding others who understand our struggles? The skeptic scoffed, crossing his arms defiantly. Words don't change lives. Actions do. Jack could see that familiar reaction ripple through the audience. He understood the skepticism, he had seen it on the faces of people who had grown weary of promises that turned into smoke. But there was more at stake here. He took a moment, searching the faces around him. The threads of pain and hope intertwined in their gazes were raw and vulnerable. He needed to shift the narrative, to harness their doubt into strength. Jack turned back to the crowd, his heart racing but his words flowing clear. Yes, actions matter. But maybe it begins here. Maybe tonight, we take the first step. Maria moved beside him, her quiet sturdiness grounding him. Sometimes, she added softly, it's the act of sharing that ignites the fire for change. Talking can lead to actions, can lead to healing. Her gentle voice cut through the tension, drawing nods from the crowd. Jack felt a glimmer of hope. Together, they could breathe life into those words. Perhaps this could be a spark. But let us not just be spectators, he continued, his voice gaining strength. Let us dive deeper. What about those who don't feel safe enough to speak? What are we going to do about them? The skeptic shifted uncomfortably, and Jack saw the slight cracking of their resolve. The weight of silence settled again, but now it was different. It was filled with possibility. Emboldened by Maria's presence, Jack forged ahead with certainty. Each of us has a part in this. Let us encourage conversation, let us create spaces for sharing not just here but beyond these walls. Together, we can start to make a real difference. He could feel the tension shifting in the air, hope mingled with defiance like a storm looming on the horizon. All across the room, faces brightened, people leaned in closer, willing to step away from the shadows of doubt. Just as Jack caught sight of promising smiles emerging among the crowd, the skeptic dared to challenge again. And what if it all falls apart again? Jack swallowed hard but stood firm. Then we rebuild. Together. That's the point. With that declaration, the mood in the room began to change. Conversations sparked hot and unfiltered like kindling. Questions arose, stories tumbled forth, and the very air felt charged with energy. People began to stand, share their thoughts, and even support one another in the face of fear. Jack could tearfully smile as he caught Maria's gaze, and in that moment, they understood the gravity of what they were building together. But in the back of his mind, threads of anxiety wove together, whispering warnings. Would this swell of support withstand the inevitable flood of doubt that would ensue? As the crowd's energy pulsed with renewed vigor, he knew a storm was brewing. And as he looked towards the skeptic, still hanging in the shadows, Jack felt the need to confront that doubt again, to stand his ground where vulnerability met courage. Would they truly be able to bridge that gap and stand firm through whatever challenges lay ahead? The answer hung like an unanswered prayer in the air, and the night felt far from over. Jack felt the weight of the moment settle, thrilling and terrifying at once. Conversations erupted around him, voices blending into a chaotic melody of hope and vulnerability. He noticed a woman in the front row, her eyes glistening with tears, her hands trembling as she raised them. "I've been struggling for so long," she said, her voice cracking. "I never knew I could share my burden." The crowd immediately fell silent, leaning closer. Jack's heart raced as he watched Maria step forward, her presence wrapping around the woman like a warm blanket. "You're not alone," Maria replied gently, her eyes full of understanding. "This is a safe space." Jack felt a powerful rush as others began to follow suit. A young man stood up next, stammering at first but gaining confidence as he spoke about his own battles with mental health. "It feels like a weight lifted just to talk about it," he admitted, laughter and sighs of relief rippling through the audience. It was beautiful, healing everything Jack had hoped for, but then the skeptic spoke up again, his voice low. "What if this doesn't last? What if we go back to being strangers?" There it was, that familiar shadow of doubt lurking again. Jack's heart sank, but he took a breath. "Change doesn't happen overnight," he said, struggling to keep his voice steady. "It's a journey, and tonight is just the beginning. We are here to share our lives, to build connections that can grow. It means we call each other when we're in a dark place, we don't let those moments slip away." A rustling of agreement washed over the crowd. Jack caught a glimpse of the skeptic's expression, less cold now, almost thoughtful. He wondered if even this person could be reached, cracked open just a bit, like everyone else. As the stories continued pouring forth, Jack's apprehension began to fade, but his mind remained sharp. He sensed the crowd's energy shifting, as if they were forging an invisible bond in the air, weaving stories into a collective tapestry of support. He wondered what lay ahead. Would this new connection hold strong when life's challenges emerged from the shadows again? Maria caught his eye, and her smile lit a flicker of warmth inside him. "Look at this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They're getting it. They're letting it in." Just then, the young man who had first opened up began to lead a group in a chant, "We are not alone." The crowd followed suit, voices rising in a beautiful cacophony, filling the space with hope. It felt electric, invigorating, a perfect storm of change brewing, yet, a knot tightened in Jack's stomach, an echo of doubt still hovering. He turned to Maria, needing to voice the question that loomed large. "Can we keep this going? Can this truly survive the test of reality? Before she could respond, a figure broke through the crowd, a friend from Jack's past, someone he hadn't seen in years. The starkness of their sudden reappearance sent a shiver through him. He took a moment to gather his thoughts, uncertainty gnawing at him. But all he could focus on was the intensity of emotions flowing around him, joy and fear intertwining, vulnerability skyrocketing. Did this friend bring answers or more questions? Jack? The friend called out, their voice pushing through the noise like a beacon. As Jack turned to face them, he felt a tightening in his chest. What could this mean for the movement they had started? Did it signal change or an unraveling? Would they be able to withstand the weight of all they had just begun? He opened his mouth, ready to respond, but the weight of uncertainty loomed larger than ever. Jack felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. The wave of nostalgia slammed into him like a freight train. No way, he muttered under his breath. Greg had been his best friend through high school, before they both took different paths. A wave of memories crashed over him, shared laughter, the comfort of camaraderie, and the inevitable drift that led them to this moment. Jack! Greg called again, stepping closer, his brow furrowed. Are you all right? It's been years. Jack nodded, his throat too tight to form words. Somehow, the chaotic atmosphere of vulnerability surrounding them had been disrupted by this unexpected visit. As the crowd continued to rally under the weight of shared stories, Greg's expression turned serious. I heard you were doing this, helping people. I didn't know if I should come, but he hesitated, glancing around. Is it worth it? Jack's heart sank. The inquiry was loaded, heavy with disbelief. Does he even know what they've built here tonight? He wanted to explain, to pull Greg into the euphoric whirlwind they had stirred, but the words hung suspended in his throat. Instead, he leaned in closer, attempting to project strength. There's something special happening right now. These people are being brave. They're sharing their pain. With a nod, Greg's blue eyes softened, but a flicker of skepticism returned. That's great, but how does that change anything? Jack glanced back at the stage where stories flowed like vivid streams, hope rising like the tide. It can change everything. If we don't let it die out, if we keep talking, keep holding each other accountable. As he spoke, the chant resumed, louder now, we are not alone. Jack caught sight of the woman from the front row, her shaky hands finally dropping, but her face glowing with relief. I can't believe I said anything, she laughed, infectious joy radiating like sunlight. And I didn't even know I needed to. I feel free. That sense of liberation washed over Jack as he looked back at Greg. This is the lifeblood of healing. People aren't strangers here, they are beginning to fight together. A tear escaped from Greg's eye, and Jack could see the crack forming. But just as quickly, an emotion Jack couldn't place flickered in his friend's gaze. Was he touched, or was it still disbelief? I wish I could feel that. Then speak up, Jack urged, feeling desperate. Come share. What's stopping you? Was that the answer? Not just leaning in to listen, but truly engaging with their struggles? In that moment, Jack's confidence surged. His friend needed see the power of vulnerability, that it didn't diminish you, it magnified you. Greg hesitated, fidgeting with his hands as he took a step backward. I don't know, I've got my own shadows. That passed. I've never let anyone in. Then tonight is your chance. Jack blurted. The heat of the moment bore down on him, full of raw emotion and urgency. You don't have to carry that alone. Just then, the crowd erupted in applause, thrilled by the bravery of another voice rising to join them. Jack felt the infectious energy swirl, but also the undercurrent of fear in Greg's stillness. What would it take for him to open up? Would he? With a flicker of hope, Jack reached out, ready to pull Greg back into the self that had so long been held captive. But would his friend take that leap? As Jack waited for Greg's decision, the weight of possibility felt thick in the air. What if this was the moment everything changed for him, too? "Come on," he gently urged, praying for the courage to hold that door open for his friend and for those still standing in the shadows of despair. Would Greg step through? Would he allow the threat of vulnerability to become a beacon for his own healing? Greg glanced around, uncertainty etched on his face as the applause faded into the background noise of laughter and stories. Jack could see fear swirling in his friend's eyes, a tempest of emotion that held him captive. "Jack," Greg's voice faltered. "It's not that simple." "Maybe it is," Jack interjected, trying to maintain a balance of reassurance and urgency. "You aren't the only one here who has suffered. Everyone's got something. This is a place for honesty. It's a chance to break free." In that moment, the crowd erupted again as another person took the stage, vulnerability radiating in every step. Jack's heart quickened. This was what he wanted for Greg, a moment where he could let go of the past. Where he could breathe without the weight of those shadows. "You've been through so much. I know it. Remember those late-night talks?" Jack urged. He could feel the tension crackling between them, a fragile fraying thread. "You survived all of that. Don't you want to be free of it?" "Those talks were a lifetime ago," Greg retorted, an edge creeping into his voice. "I've buried all of that, Jack. I don't think I can dig it up again." The air felt charged with emotion. Jack took a step closer, lowering his voice, trying to reach deeper. "You don't have to dig it all up alone. This isn't about dredging up the past, it's about sharing, finding strength in that shared struggle. Please, trust me." Greg's gaze darted toward the crowd, where people were nodding, tears in their eyes, encouragement vibrating through the air. For a fleeting moment, Jack thought he saw the flicker of hope ignite something in Greg. What if nobody wants to hear what I have to say?" Greg whispered, his voice wobbly. "They already care. Everyone here wants connection. They want to feel less alone, just like you." A moment stretched between them, alive with unspoken words. Jack held his breath, feeling the urgency building. Greg was trembling, caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. Would he choose to step forward, step back, or remain frozen in place? The room quieted as another voice emerged from the crowd. "You matter," someone called out. "Your story matters." That seemed to shift something within Greg. Jack watched as the tears rolled down his friend's cheeks, catching the light. Suddenly, Jack could see the cracks opening wider, allowing vulnerability to seep through. Maybe you're right," Greg murmured, almost to himself. "It wouldn't hurt to try, would it?" "Not at all," Jack replied, the tremor in his voice barely contained. "You're stronger than you think. If you share even a fraction of what you've held on to, it may lift you. It may lift us all." Taking a deep breath, Greg took a hesitant step forward. The murmurs of encouragement rose up again. Jack felt the pulse of the room shift, an undeniable wave of energy that made his heart race. As Greg approached the mic, Jack's heart soared, a thrill coursing through him. Could this be it? Had the door cracked open? Would his friend take this leap into the unknown? With trembling hands, Greg reached for the mic. He opened his mouth, but words froze on the edge of his lips. "Just breathe," Jack whispered, silent hope flooding him. This was at a moment of transformation, of revelation. But what would come out when Greg finally spoke? Would it be confession, sorrow, or something even more profound? The tension thickened, and the quiet anticipation of the crowd surged. What would happen next? Would Greg finally reveal what he had hidden for so long, or would he hesitate once more, caught in the shadows that had followed him? Greg's heart pounded, a wild drumbeat of anxiety and hope crashing against his ribs. He felt the weight of the mic in his hand, both a burden and a beacon. As he looked out at the sea of faces, each one filled with anticipation and empathy, the fear clawed deeper into his chest. Taking a shaky breath, he opened his mouth again, willing the words to come. The sound caught in his throat, floundering like a baby bird. Jack's eyes did not leave him. They were full of support, coaxing Greg from the edge of his internal struggle. "Whatever you want to say," he encouraged softly, "we're here for it." The room held its breath, an electrifying stillness wrapping around them. Greg felt the weight of all his unspoken fears pressing down on him. What if they didn't understand? What if they turned away? But then, the memory of that boy lost and lonely, the boy who had buried dreams and inner turmoil flashed through him. "It was me," he finally murmured, almost inaudibly. "I was that boy." The crowd leaned in, an instinctive call to his voice. "I've struggled with so much. With myself, with my family." Greg felt a warmth fill him, even as the edges of his words remained jagged. "I thought I could outrun it, my past, my pain." He hesitated, peering into the eyes of the audience who leaned forward, hungry for more. Their patience was a warm tide that enveloped him. "But I can't," he continued, his voice gaining steadiness as he found rhythm. "I've tried to hide it, to cheat my way out of the darkness, but it's always been there. Every lost job, every broken promise, it whispers my name." The murmurs grew louder, an undercurrent of understanding rippling through the crowd. Jack's heart raced, a symphonic blend of hope and dread. He'd seen Greg's struggles, the way he had learned to carry that invisible weight. But now, it was unfolding, spilling out in raw, unapologetic honesty. "I thought I could just turn the page," Greg confessed, his voice now rising above the swell. "But those pages were stained. My hurt became my identity. I lost the person I wanted to be." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. They felt his pain, their hearts resonating with the familiarity of struggle. Jack closed his eyes for a moment, wishing he could help, wishing he could wrap his arms around his friend and carry it all away. But he opened them again just in time to see Greg lift his chin, the light of resolve flickering in his gaze. "But I'm done hiding," he declared, the tremor replaced by strength. "I want to heal. I want to be seen. I want to be myself." Cheers erupted, drowning Greg's shivering vulnerability in a thunderous wave of support. "That's it," someone shouted. "Let it out." The crowd was alive, vibrant, becoming one spirit that lifted him higher than he thought possible. Tears streamed down his face, sparkling against the spotlight, but this time, they were tears of relief. His heart swelled, cracking open a space where the pain had been. He felt unshackled, a wild freedom rising inside him. "I know it's a journey," he breathed, allowing a shaky laugh to escape. "But maybe I'm finally ready to take that first step. No more running." As the audience erupted into applause, something shifted in Greg. He turned to Jack, who was standing with tears in his eyes, beaming with pride. For the first time in forever, Greg felt a smile stretch across his face that wasn't masked by uncertainty. Then, as the enormity of what he had just done hit him like a wave crashing on the shore, he wondered, could he take that next step? Could he really start to heal? In the back, a stranger raised his hand, calling out, "You're not alone. We're in this together." The laughter and tears blended into a symphony of hope. But as the adrenaline surged, Greg felt a flicker of panic. What would come next? Did he fully understand what lay ahead? The crowd continued to cheer, but doubts taunted him from the corners of his mind. Had he truly broken free, or was he simply standing on the edge of a much tougher journey? The music swelled as he stood there, heart wide open and the future uncertain, but one thing was clear: he was ready to face whatever came, whatever challenge loomed on the horizon. What awaited him on this new path? Could he trust himself to keep moving forward? Would there be more to unearth, more pain to confront? The journey was just beginning, and the echoes of both hope and anxiety lingered in the air. The applause gradually faded into an encouraging murmur as Greg stood there, still gripping the microphone, overwhelmed by the warmth of the moment. Everything felt electric, but beneath that thrill was a rising tide of uncertainty. He had stepped into the light, but now all those countless shadows of doubt loomed larger than before. Jack bounded forward, pulling Greg into an embrace, his voice barely above a whisper. "You did it, man. You really did it." The words were filled with unwavering support, but Greg could feel the tremors of his own heart echoing in Jack's band of muscles. "Yeah, but what's next?" Greg responded, pulling back to search Jack's face for answers. "Am I ready for this?" Panic flared in his chest like a half-buried ember, threatening to ignite. Jack held his gaze steady. "You are. Trust me. After that, you can face anything." With one last deep breath, Greg turned back to face the audience. The weight of their hopeful expressions steadied him a fraction. They were in limbo with him, and he realized they were ready to accompany him on this journey. "So, you're not alone in this," Greg called out, trying to ignite that fleeting momentum again. "I need your help, too. We can't do it by ourselves." A ripple of soft encouragement washed over the room. Cheers erupted once more, shaking the walls of the community center as people shouted their agreement. "We're in this together." The energy spun around him, lifting him off the ground, as if the very air was infused with the possibility of change. For the first time, he saw faces he recognized: coworkers, friends from childhood, and even old schoolmates. They were all united in this moment. "Let us support each other," he urged, passion igniting his voice, but beneath the cheers, uncertainty still flickered inside him. What if they didn't stick around when the trials started piling up? What if, in exposing his truth, he had inadvertently highlighted theirs too? He could almost hear the echoes of their struggles mixed in with his own, creating an intricate tapestry of pain and hope. Greg's heart raced as he continued. "I'm scared. And while I can't predict how this journey will unfold, I want to try. For all of us." He gestured toward the crowd, which had now grown quiet, leaning in close, their eyes glued to him. As he stepped back from the mic, feeling lighter somehow yet still aware of the depth of the task he had set for himself, Jack clapped him on the shoulder. "You just opened the door, buddy. Let us see who walks through it." What if they truly came together? What if vulnerability connected them in ways he had never imagined? That lingering question hung in the air, and Greg could feel it twist around him like smoke. The future remained an uncharted territory, full of potential and unease. As the event slowly shifted to quieter conversations, he caught sight of a woman at the back of the room. She had clutched her phone tightly, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. The moment their gaze met, she raised her voice amidst the crowd, "I want to share my story, too." A ripple of anticipation spread through the audience as murmurs cascaded down like waves. Would her words add to the tide of healing they had just begun? Greg's heart raced with hope and apprehension. Could more stories be the link that held them all together? Suddenly, the warmth surrounding him felt like a blanket woven from shared experiences, yet he wondered, would the act of sharing also invite new complexities, new fears waiting to resurface? The moment sparked within Greg, igniting a flicker of courage. What if each voice added weight to the others, creating a foundation strong enough for all of them to stand on? As the woman began to speak, Greg felt a powerful shift in the air, one that promised to challenge him, to stretch him, to heal him. But he also sensed it would pull others along on this delicate journey. Could courage ripple outward as vulnerability had in this very moment? The crowd hushed, anticipation crackling like static. No one would remain untouched by what unfolded next. And as stories began to intertwine, what strength would they discover in the faces of their collective struggles? This was just the start, but one thing was clear: they were all on the brink of an awakening. Greg held his breath, ready for this new layer of the journey. What other hidden truths would come to light? What tendrils of fear would they unravel next? Would their shared burdens bring them closer or threaten to tear them apart? The room fell silent as the woman spoke, her voice fragile yet determined. "Hi, I'm Sarah," she began, a quiver betraying her nerves. "I never thought I'd stand up here, but something in Greg's words made me realize I needed to share." Greg felt his heart pounding, anticipation growing like a storm inside him. The air thickened as everyone focused on Sarah. He could see the flutter of her hands as she gripped the microphone, holding on for strength. "I've been cleaning offices for years," she continued, her eyes gazing down as if searching for lost pieces of herself among the floor tiles. "People see me, but they don't see my story. They don't know what I face every day. I deal with struggles, family problems, health issues, stuff that feels unmanageable sometimes." The weight of her honesty hung heavy in the air, and Greg felt an aching empathy for her pain. He saw people nodding, and a few wiped away tears. There was something in the openness of her vulnerability that struck a chord deep within him. They all carried scars, some hidden, some etched boldly on the surface. As Sarah's story unfolded, tales of resilience and heartache poured out of her. She talked about sleepless nights, the stress of making ends meet, and her dreams that always seemed just out of reach. The room swayed like a living organism, shifting with every word. No one was just a passive listener anymore, they were all bearers of their own struggles. Greg felt alive with that energy, like his skin was tingling with possibility. This was what he had wanted, to create connection, to bring forth the truth in every heart. He leaned forward, captivated, wondering what Sarah would reveal next, but then, she hesitated, her voice trembling as she choked back tears. "There was a time I thought about giving up." The electricity in the room dimmed for a moment, a shared breath held tightly. "I thought no one would care." A gust of compassion swept through Greg, and he wanted to reach out, to comfort. But instead, he remained a spectator, witnessing a profound moment of raw emotion. He could sense others stepping a little closer, their collective presence almost tangible. "I know how hard it is. And I know how easy it is to feel invisible," Sarah said, finally looking up to meet the eyes of her audience. "But standing here, I feel a glimmer of hope." Hope. The word bounced around the room, and Greg felt it spark inside everyone. They were not just responding to her painful truth, they were building something new. A bridge built on revelations and strength. Jack squeezed Greg's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the power of the moment. It was a reminder that vulnerability couldn't just bring the weight of sadness, it could ignite joyous connections too. As Sarah finished, the room erupted in applause, her courageous act stirring both admiration and collective inspiration. The energy shifted, molding itself not just around her but also inviting others into the fold. "Who else wants to share?" Greg called out, his voice reaching a new fervor, alive with renewed spirit. He could feel an electric pulse of excitement and fear meshing together, a thrilling chaos. Several hands shot up, faces filled with hope and trepidation. Greg's heart raced at the scope of it all. Every new story was a thread, weaving a tapestry of shared pain and triumph, a legacy they could build together. But in the back of his mind, a question loomed: what if those secrets were too heavy to carry? What if this newfound bond shattered under the weight of their truths? As each testament emerged, Greg sensed a transformative potential, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the beginning. They were skimming the surface of deeper waters, and some currents might pull them under. "Let us hear more. Let us uncover more," he urged, emboldened by rapid heartbeats and nervous laughter filling the room. The space became a sanctuary, radiant with shared stories, yet Greg hoped it would sustain them when emotional storms arrived. Would their sense of belonging survive the onslaught of vulnerability, as they embarked on this unexpected journey? He felt the horizon shift, light and shadow dancing across their newfound path. He couldn't help but wonder, what truths remained hidden, waiting to rise in the light of day? What struggles would emerge, perhaps darker than they ever anticipated? Jack stood on the edge of the stage, energy crackling in the air. He couldn't believe how far they had come. The event, once a mere idea, had morphed into a powerful movement. A shared heartbeat pulsed through the crowd, vibrating with hope, courage, and vulnerability. As Greg wrapped up his heartfelt confession, applause erupted. Jack felt the warmth in the room as Maria, standing beside him, squeezed his hand, her eyes sparkling with pride and still a hint of fear. "Look at them." Jack said, scanning the faces teeming with understanding and encouragement. This is the moment we knew could happen. The crowd had gathered, but it wasn't just a random assembly of people. It was a community, forged through stories, hardships, and a shared determination to face their demons together. They began clapping, chanting, "We are not alone. We are not alone." The sheer power of their unity was palpable, but beneath the exhilaration, a weight tugged at Jack's heart. Would this moment last? Would they hold on to this bravery when the shadows crept back in? As the celebration flowed, Jack leaned closer to Maria. "Do you think we can keep this going? Like, really?" She searched his eyes, her voice steady, tinged with resolve. "Yes. We need to keep these conversations alive. We need to be each other's light." Sarah, inspired by Greg's bravery, stepped back up to the mic, her voice steady now. "I want to lead a support group," she announced, a spark igniting the room once more. "We can't stop here. We need to build a lifeline for each other, share more stories and check in with each other." Applause cascaded around her, and whispers of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jack felt a rush of empowerment at Sarah's words. They were ready for more than just one night of sharing. They needed a framework to support each other long after the lights dimmed and the crowds dispersed. Excitement bubbled over as others jumped in, eager to contribute, to suggest resources, and to create schedules. The conversation broadened, bringing more perspectives into view. Ideas flew like confetti, each one wrapped in earnest: a support hotline, a community group, a monthly sharing night. As they discussed, Jack noticed Greg's rising confidence. He seemed lighter, unburdened. Jack caught his eye, a smile overtaking his expressions. This journey of healing was far from over. It had just begun. Then, like a comet streaking across the night sky, Greg stepped forward again. "Let us not just talk. Let us take action. I want to volunteer at the shelter, raise funds, provide housing for those who need it." Jack couldn't help but cheer, thrusting a fist into the air. "Yes. We can do all of that. Let us reach out to the community. Let us use this momentum." Maria took the lead here, her voice rising above the growing excitement. "Let us all commit to sharing our stories on social media, spread awareness about what's happening here. People need to know they're not alone. This has to grow beyond these walls." With that, a revelation washed over Jack like daylight breaking through darkness. This wasn't just about tonight. This was a movement. They weren't just creating change for themselves but for every person who had felt marginalized, for every survivor who needed to be heard. The cheers echoed louder, growing into a symphony of hope and commitment. Jack looked at Maria, who had taken on the crown of determination, a beacon amidst the sparks flying. As the night wore on, Jack felt the power of connection radiate through him. He knew trials would come. Doubts would return. But in that moment, surrounded by faces of strength, Greg, Maria, Sarah, and the countless others who had taken the leap, he understood they could face anything together. The last call for stories opened the floodgates of emotion. People shared, voiced their fears and hopes, their laughter and tears melding into the fabric of a vibrant community woven strong. None would fall behind. Once the applause settled, Jack mounted the stage again, heart pounding beneath the weight of purpose. Tonight wasn't just a singular moment. It's the journey that stretches before us. It's about action. He pointed to Greg, who had once felt captive in shadows. "We've seen how sharing our stories ignites flames. Now let us make sure those flames don't extinguish." The room erupted in cheers, voices ringing true, and so it was. Hearts were now ignited, stories braided together, and off they would go, each member carrying their own light but shining brighter together. In this new chapter of resilience, Jack knew that as long as they supported one another, there would always be hope, always be healing. This was only the beginning of their incredible transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep the momentum going. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending because we want to hear your thoughts. share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to be a part of this journey. Don't wait not even one more second to share.